Kia ora tātou, welcome back everybody to our council meeting for Wednesday, 7th of May, 2025. Councillors, will jump to number 12 because we've got journals here, and this is around the Te Manawa Museums Trust, and we welcome them. So Jeff Jameson, the acting chair, and Susanna Shadbolt, the chief executive. So welcome.
Right, thanks very much. I think I've seen everybody in the room before, but not in my new role as interim chair of Te Manawa Museums Trust Board. And so it's my pleasure to introduce Susanna, who is, I think, very well known to everybody here, who will present the response to the statement of intent. And we have with us also Sarah Allen, sitting behind up there, our finance guru. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Jeff. Tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak to our 6-month report and our statement of intent. Te Manawa is grateful for the ongoing support that we receive from Palmerston North City Council. It's been an extremely busy and very exciting 6 months up until December. Firstly, I do want to acknowledge the great Robin Kahukiwa, a prominent Māori artist and activist who passed away last month. For her exhibition Tohunga Mahi Toi, Te Manawa collaborated with the New Zealand Portrait Gallery to showcase a powerful collection of Robin's work spanning her lifetime. It will tour 5 more venues nationwide, opening at Waikato Museum next week. Our exhibition Feminine Abstract brought together 14 artists from across the Motu, with each of these women exploring the realm of abstraction through their unique lens. As a result of forming and strengthening these relationships, one of the artists donated a significant large work to our collection. We also revitalised our science offerings, bringing back the former touring exhibition Sunlight Iho Komaru and enhancing it. In October, we completed the first major change and redesign in years of part of our gallery. The new display, Call Me Maybe, features a selection of phones from our collection spanning the decades from the 1880s to the present day. With the purchase of 3 tall cases for the Te Rangi Whenua Gallery, we have been able to display kakahu and other cloaks from our collection. The popularity of our learning program saw Te Manawa exceed its 2024 target set by the Ministry of Education for the ELC funding, with our team being highly responsive to the exhibitions on the floor. The huge task of archiving the Peter Bush collection has begun, and to date almost 20,000 photos have been catalogued. And over the next year, we work towards a display of that collection. In September, we transitioned to a new finance system, moving from a paper-based system that was deeply grounded in the last century to a cloud-based system that was really challenging. And I would like to acknowledge the City Council's CFO, Cameron Mackay, and his team for their support and for helping us navigate some of these challenges. The budgeted surplus for the 6-month period was over $100,000 against an actual deficit of $1,400. The variance was primarily due to a combination of staffing changes and 3 pay periods occurring in December, not in January as budgeted. Another item of note is the increasing utilities cost. Due to a change in council-approved suppliers, it was up $11,000 on budget year to date, and the current forecast predicts that it will sit around $40,000 by end of year. Also, timing issues meant that some of the anticipated revenue hadn't come forward at that time, but we are now back on track for year end. The SOI outlines the development of a new science centre as a major focus for the next couple of years. And Te Manawa has invited elected members and council officers and also other councils to come together later this month, and we're looking forward to hosting you and presenting our vision for a new science centre. The new science centre will be developed over the next 2 to 3 years in a modular way. It is about future-proofing Te Manawa, ensuring business continuity and resilience, and that we serve and benefit our communities. While our vision for the future is ambitious, we are fully dedicated to raising the necessary funds to bring our vision of a new science centre to fruition. The full-scale development of the centre can only proceed when funding becomes available, but we firmly believe that this project will bring tremendous value to our communities. And in response to the specific comments made on the draft SOI in Table 4, one of the comments was about contributing towards specific actions in the arts plan and the heritage plan. Everything in the SOI supports Palmerston North City Council's arts plan and heritage plan, and the SOI contains those activities and initiatives that Te Manawa is committed to undertaking in support of the city's objectives. This includes specific targets and objectives involving the custodianship, the care and curation of the collections, and the provision of access to collections. In addition, in direct correlation to the Council's art plan, Te Manawa supports projects that promote Māori creative practices, provides professional expertise and participation opportunities to community-led organisations, particularly underrepresented communities, provides exhibition of and exposure to creative storytelling that inspires expression and ownership of identity, contributing to societal well-being, and will continue to support and contribute to the civic and cultural master plan. Te Manawa plays a critical role in the protection and understanding of our city's history, cultural diversity, and shared heritage. Supporting the Heritage Plan, Te Manawa collaborates with Rangitane, participates in Heritage Month, supports schools through heritage-based learning programs, cares for and provides access to the city's heritage objects, and provides quality visitor experiences through interactivity and storytelling, both at Te Manawa and online. Te Manawa contributes also to the city's climate change and sustainability plan, both through its operation tools and targets, through its science-led experiences and learning programs. It also connects with community sustainability organisations and stakeholders to promote best practice and provide engaging opportunities that encourage community participation. Another comment is reviewing the targets to be more ambitious. In terms of visitor numbers, Te Manawa is all about adding value and providing a quality experience. While we do increase our targets annually, I want to caution against increasing them further. Bigger and more doesn't necessarily mean better. We have significantly high and challenging enough measures in place. Our visitor numbers exceed those of other colleagues in the sector. We'd rather celebrate successes than set ourselves up for failure and put all our efforts into achieving or exceeding a certain target to the detriment of others or the quality of our offerings. Our visitation measure directly reflects the estimated population growth of the city, and I think that's a fair measure. Online engagement. The online engagement measure exists to ensure we are extending our core business, that is the Te Manawa experience, beyond the physical premises and developing tools to engage people. Targets are based on an average achieved in recent years and are to be achieved without relying on posts going viral, which accounts for our significant target achievement this year. Last year, we didn't meet our target. Just because we had one success this year shouldn't mean that we have to make the target bigger. Viral hits are wildly unpredictable and not guaranteed, and as we all know, the landscape of social media is constantly changing. It would be irresponsible to make our targets more ambitious based on one viral success and without the capacity to provide dedicated full-time roles for social media and digital content creation. So we feel the number is significant enough to measure how we consistently engage with our communities. Explore the collection. Explore the collection is not developed in order to grow online engagement. It is developed to provide access to the collection for interest, research purposes, and posterity. It is our duty to ensure the collection is not simply stored, but cared for through access, both physical and digital. Ultimately, Explore the Collection will contribute to our online engagement targets, but it is not being developed to meet this purpose. And revenue targets. Our revenue targets for the Science Centre are very ambitious, also considering we are fundraising in a challenging economic climate. We have developed a funding plan with the help of Jenny Giblin from Funding HQ, who successfully raised over 30 million for the Sargent Gallery project in Wanganui. While I feel really positive about the Science Centre fundraising campaign, it will be challenging to raise funds for business as usual, as we are exhausting other funding avenues. And the comment around participation for underrepresented communities. This mustn't be a box-ticking exercise, but instead a meaningful connection that responds to community needs, which is why we have not defined them as much as not to limit us. The ability to adapt and to be flexible and open to a range of groups is our current aim. We commit to working with underrepresented communities, and in the footnote we have listed Māori, Pacifica, minority ethnic groups, former refugees, people with disabilities, children, young people, older people, and rainbow communities. While our connecting may include initiatives such as the NOA program, Museum in a Box, and the Tamariki exhibition space as named in last year's SOI, it may include other initiatives that respond to community needs. But the initiatives are something we report on, and we don't feel they need to be included in the SOI at a high level. And manage existing collections and potential donations. Our current KPI was actually set by Council last year, stating developing a proposal with PNCC to mitigate risks and address challenges that arise with the art gallery's ability to host high-quality contemporary exhibitions and provide museum standard level of care for collections and loaned items. Increasingly, Te Manawa is questioned and scrutinised by other galleries, and we have to provide environmental readings for our upcoming exhibition by internationally recognised artist Brent Harris. A loan from Auckland Art Gallery was recently declined, and no doubt there will be more following, so the billing challenges are impacting our ability to operate. And the managing existing collections potential donations, I'm not entirely sure I fully understand the recommendation, but Te Manawa has strict measures in place. We have collecting policy, taonga Māori and tikanga policy, collection procedures, and collection focus. We're following sector standards regarding handling the care and environmental controls. We have great security in place, insurance, and we are bound by the International Council of Museums and Museums Aotearoa Code of Ethics. We have recruited high caliber staff and have ongoing professional development, only trained qualified staff here for agile collections. Perhaps an action is to make our policies available to council officers or any elected members on request. I also note that every elected member is offered a back of house tour and is explained what we do and how we work, and this is part of the PNCC induction, and we are putting it into the calendar already for the election coming up. And lastly, the Heritage Reference Group. Our Heritage Curator has been selected as part of this group, so Te Manawa continues to ensure two-way communication so we can contribute to the Heritage Plan and ensure we can collaborate to the best of our abilities and offer our expertise. Thank you once again for your ongoing support and your trust in Te Manawa. Over the past 6 months in particular, this support has meant that we could implement and deliver on some of the promises we made and progress vital projects for the benefit of our communities. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa. Any questions?
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Susanne. A couple from me. So you made some specific comments around the visitor baseline numbers or visitation numbers and cautioning elected members to perhaps question them. Can I ask though, when you're going to spend $3.5 million on a new visitor attraction, would that not be reflected in more people coming through the door? Wouldn't that be a sign of success for your organisation?
Yes, it would be, but we're not open yet, so hopefully in 2 or 3 years. And I think we would want to probably see how the numbers stack up before we set a higher measure as well.
Okay, all right. And just on the SOI, or staying with the SOI, I should say, really probably around strategic objective 3 and around a collaboration, and you spoke about reflecting the city's history. Where does the Rugby Museum and potentially other collections or other more amateur museums like the medical and the military, where do they fit in? Who are big parts of the city?
They would fit under the partnership and, of course, heritage, sporting heritage, and we are doing this and we have done so in the past, and we're currently storing items from the medical museum as well, and regularly collaborate with the military museum too.
Okay, but that's not reflected in here. Do we need to put something in there to?
I wouldn't think so, because we are collaborating.
Okay. All right, there's something for us to have a choice on anyway. Rachel, sorry, Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mr. Grant Smith, the Mayor. Thank you, Susanna and Jeff, for coming in today. My questions really follow up on your comments around the approach to engaging with and enabling participation by underrepresented communities. And noting that the objective talks about exhibition opportunities with one of these groups, the officer's comment talks about the programs that you mentioned also that are not running at the moment but have potential to pick up again. So I was wondering if the objective is scoped a bit too narrowly, listening to what you said, where you seem to be talking about initiatives being part of the response to that, as well as exhibition opportunities. Have you any comment on that?
Not necessarily. So what, and maybe I didn't really make this clear, I don't think we need to narrow it down to the initiatives. It's really about we want to be as open as possible and as flexible as possible to engage with all underrepresented communities. So I think my only comment was that it doesn't need to be specific to the NOAA program or Museum in the Box or Tamariki as well.
My concern is that we're specifically saying an exhibition opportunity for one of these groups. That seems to me to be very much narrowing it down, and I wondered whether we can broaden that out. I want to see some outcomes in this space. I want you to be able to report, say, how you've engaged with underrepresented communities rather than saying, well, we didn't do an exhibition for one group. That seems to be not the intent of what we're trying to achieve.
I'd be happy for it to be broader, but I would be cautious to say 5 exhibitions because it is a major resource issue that would face us as well. So it's it's a measure that we hope and know we can achieve if it's one exhibition, for example.
Thank you. That answers the question. Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, team. I know you've got a presentation to us on the Science Centre coming up shortly, but is it all right if I ask some questions about that now, or would you rather we wait?
Depends what the question is.
Well, could I just get an understanding, is the intention that you're going to upgrade an existing facility you have to provide this function, or build a new facility on your campus?
I hope I understood the question right. It will be a completely new science centre, but within the existing building and within the current footprint of Te Manawa.
Okay.
But it will be developed in a modular way, so we can potentially, once we have the new building, we can all pick it up and take it with us.
You've preempted my second question. My other one was that the Mayor in his comments alluded to a $3.5 million figure. Is that what you're looking at for this new centre?
Potentially, so that's what what the fundraising campaign will has outlined, and we have secured a third of that funding already. So we've set it aside from our reserves, and we've secured funds from the Science Centre Trust as well. They've pledged that. So the next will be going to the big funders and hopefully secure more.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Naylor.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm just looking at the 3-year statement of intent and looking at the financials that are projected there. On page 264 of our papers, or 24 of your report. Going into next year, the budget for 25-26 year is a planned $1.444 million surplus. I'm just wondering is there a purpose for that level of surplus this year?
Yes, it's in line with accounting standards, so we had a lot of conversation with the finance team at council, and this is how we need to present it, because it just relates to the science centre, and that's just the funds that we have to raise for the science centre.
And so the funds for the Science Centre, is that what that grants for the Science Centre, the 1 million and the revenue part of it is? 20.
Yeah, perhaps I can say from accumulated funds, there's $900,000 that's allocated. From the Science Centre Trust has committed 250,000 of the 3.5 million that we're looking for. And then Jenny Giblin is quite optimistic about major sources of funding for us, given her past experience and success with the Sargent Gallery.
Okay, I guess the reason I'm asking, in light of council's grant being 190,000 more for that year, and then having a surplus that big, it just trying to understand whether that additional funding from council is necessary in light of all of that.
Yes, it is, because those funds are set aside for the science centre solely, so
And-
not operations.
Okay, is there any, I mean, perhaps officers might be able to help, but is there anywhere that we can see it separated from the Science Centre? Or, but so the following year, when there's a $718,000 surplus, is that the same reason again? Is that for the Science Centre, or is that an actual surplus?
It's the science centre. I don't think any museum makes a surplus that big. It's really just the fundraising for the science centre.
Can officers help with that in terms of, is there a way of us looking at that in a more clear way so that we can see what's needed to run Te Manawa as opposed to the Science Centre?
Through you, Mr Mayor, Cameron Mackay, GM Corporate Services, Chief Financial Officer. I can give some assistance here. So in the 25-26 budget, where there is a net surplus of 1.44 million, effectively of that, there's a grant specific to the Science Centre identified under the revenue line of just over $1 million. Plus there is other donations and grants as well, which I am assuming is going towards a capital purpose. The same you see in budget 26-27, where there is a grant for the Science Centre specifically, which if you took that away from the net surplus deficit, you would get a much smaller number.
Yep, okay, thank you, that's helpful.
Councillor Isabella.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Thank you. I just wanted to ask a little bit about the suggestion for more ambitious targets for physical visits and online visits. And I was just looking at the past 3-year trends, and the current target of 130,000 has come down from the previous target of 178. Is that correct?
I don't think it was in the last 3 years, but I think that target was unrealistic.
Thank you. Yeah, and so looking at the actuals, it seems to me that you've only ever met the target just once, and that was last year by about 7,000. So looking at that, I would say that that feels to me like the target is pretty much right based on what you're attracting. So do you think that comment is more referring to the physical visits or more to the online?
I think the comment is probably to the online, just the online visits. However, I felt like I needed to make sure, because it talked about generally the targets are too low in that table or not ambitious enough.
And so you mentioned in your opening that there was a sort of a viral content that swayed it a little bit, and then that's quite unpredictable. And it has been quite, like looking at the past few years, that it does seem to be the case. And there was some suggestions from the staff report that perhaps some differentiation between website engagement and social media engagement might help to delineate, I guess, the effectiveness of it. But I wondered whether that kind of approach would help separate out those viral ones from spiking your figures a bit, and whether you had a view on that.
I just think it's not our core business really. So I think we need to measure the engagement and we need to provide digital engagement, absolutely. But to put sort of all the staff effort into that, I would be more reluctant when we sort of have other, when our mandate is quite different to that. So we're definitely interested in growing this, and we are currently looking at videos and also developing podcasts. So we're definitely growing in that digital space, but to just solely focus on that, we simply haven't got the resources either.
So, so having an online engagement target itself, the target perhaps, the category of target might not be telling us that useful information. Is it more about what actually comes of, what actually results from the online engagement?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so, definitely.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for statement of intent and all the information in it. Just a couple of questions. The first is reflecting on the science initiative that you're seeking to fund now. Is there any tie-in between the kind of timing of that and the centenary of we'd think of as the founding of Western science in this community, which is now the science centers? So DRI, DSIR, Grasslands, et cetera, all started in the kind of 1926 to 1928 range, which seems like it's about the same time that you're going to flip the switch on this initiative. Is there any kind of way that those will speak to each other?
Possibly. As I commented to you before, yeah, we do have this coming up, and it would be good to get some investment from them into science at Te Manawa. But unfortunately, corporate headquarters of all of these organisations are not in Palmerston North. And so that makes sort of their, if you like, loose cash a little bit harder to get hold of.
Yeah, thanks. Not necessarily even thinking in terms of grants. I mean, that would be fantastic, but just thinking in terms of simply telling the stories that are important in the Manawa too. It seems, to my way of thinking at least, if we're at the centenary of science happening in the Manawa too and we're flicking the switch on something public celebrating science, that there might be some reason to connect the dots there.
Well, I can direct you to Plains Science 1, 2 and 3, and maybe we can create, with the help of Vince Neal, a Plains Science 4 that would reflect upon the activities of our CRIs in earlier times of DSIR.
Thank you for those responses. Just wanted to pick up as well, there's a comment in the reports around COVID-19 having ongoing impacts, and just wanted to understand a little bit about what sort of impacts are being experienced.
Definitely staff illnesses and also visitors, and sometimes programs have to be cancelled due to this as well, and probably some reluctance for people to meet or come to more confined spaces. So this is really ongoing.
If you were to estimate kind of how much of a drag that was, or how much of a constraint that was, like in a percentage way, could you do that?
Oh, couldn't.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can either, but certainly it's noticeable that now people will not turn up for work if they have a cold, because it might be more than a cold. Yep. And so that's a new dynamic. Pre-COVID, people would turn up, you know, coughing and spluttering and snuffling, but people don't do that now, which is probably for the betterment of everybody's health.
Thank you. Final question was just a little bit to explore in the financial space. It just seemed to me that kind of reading through, even setting aside the $3 million fundraising, reasonably tight kind of financial prospect over the next few years. And how dependent is that on fundraising, and is there ways to control cost if some of that fundraising doesn't come through for the ongoing operations, not for the new initiatives?
Specifically the Science Centre, is it?
No, what's the overall Te Manawa? Yeah.
Yeah, it will be tough, definitely. And we've noticed this year has been a lot harder. There are timing issues, promises that were deferred, or it's definitely a much tougher environment. And we're finding that also with approaching local businesses, sponsors, that there's a reluctance, really happy to support, but it's probably more in kind, and sometimes that's great, other times it's probably less useful, and everyone's sort of saying we are a little bit cautious because of the economic climate, and that's understandable. We, yeah, we need to raise the funds in order to have the science centre that we want, but we can talk about that more when you actually come and visit. But we will definitely do something in terms of improving in the science space and our science offerings, and we'll just make the budget work to what it is, but it wouldn't be ideal, but we'll make it work.
Thank you both.
Probably similar to the lines of Councillor Barrett, but the sponsorship line fluctuates each year. And is that because you haven't got a consistent sponsor, or is it just because?
We don't necessarily have specific sponsors. There's some regulars, but it is a little bit unpredictable, and we had some successes in the past, and we're hopefully building onto those.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor.
Tēnā kōrua ngā mihi. I see on page 219, there's reference to providing free education programs to schools within Palmerston North and Manawatu District Council boundaries. And you've got achieved with 1,475 students who have been through thus far. Or is that last year? Is that last year or this? That's last year, is it? Or to date?
I'm not sure about the one. Was it 175 number? Where was that?
Oh, sorry, page 219. It's number 2 of enhanced learning and development.
No, yeah, 4,107 students.
Oh, yes. So the year is a little bit different for the Ministry of Education. It goes from January to December, so this is why it's sort of closed off, and we know for that particular year we have exceeded the figures for the Ministry of Education as well.
I suppose from my perspective as a teacher, I was thinking, well, I know within Palmerston North we've got about 16,149 students, young people enrolled in schools. So that would account for 9% of our Palmerston North population. But if we look at the Manawatu district included, that would be in excess of 30,000 students. And I just sort of think, you know, did we have a target? We've got achieved, but was that achieved 1,475 students or less?
The target was 4,000 for the year. And that was set by the Ministry of Education, and they measure other regions across the country as well.
Thank you for that. Do we, as with Te Manawa, do we set aspirational goals that might be above what the Ministry of Ed would say we should?
It's difficult to achieve. So we get funding from the Ministry of Education towards part of our education staff. The rest is funding that we receive through the council as well to have those staff. We currently have 1 full-time educator, 3 part-time educators, and I think they are at full capacity. So even having more and then thinking about the bookings that we actually can take for the programs as well, it would be really challenging. So we would have to have, I don't know, 3 or 4 times more staff in order to serve 8,000 students as well.
Thank you. So it's about capacity and ability to take those. Thank you very much. And finally, with regards to those who are less represented within our community, those communities less represented, do we have a touchstone reference group? Do you have a touchstone reference group for them?
So we often engage with the Multicultural Centre as well, and with the staff there, council staff too.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Kia ora.
Thank you.
Thank you, Worship.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Susanna. And so the science exhibit, which you touched on briefly, will be a semi-permanent? Yeah, cool. Excellent. Okay, so colleagues, we've got the recommendation there to council, 3 recommendations. The council received the 6-month performance report 1 July to 31 December 2024, attachment 1, submitted by the Trust, Te Manawa Museums Trust. 2, that council received the draft statement of intent 2025 to 28, attachment 2, submitted by Te Manawa Museums Trust. And number 3, that council agree that the recommended comments on the draft statement of intent 2025 to 28 outlined in table 4 be advised to the Te Manawa Museums Trust. I'm happy to move those, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Acknowledge the work that's been done, and looking forward to seeing what the science exhibition can look like. I think Councillor Barrett's comments around coinciding with the, I suppose, the DNA or the pedigree of science within the city, and ensuring that we're sort of opening things at the right time. There's an opportunity there anyway, and I hope that we can align the planets there to make sure that everything sort of opens at the same time. All right, I'll go to comments. Councillor Isabella.
Thank you, and thanks to Te Manawa. I just wanted to speak very briefly to the suggestion for more ambitious targets. I think the visitor target numbers are fine. I think they're set to increase year on year already for the next 3 years, and last year was the only year that in recent times that they have actually exceeded the targets by year end, despite getting to about 62 or 65% by the 6-month mark. At that second half of the year, it tends to slow down. I think that's what we'll see again this year. And without drawing a link between web engagement and outcomes, it's hard to see how useful a volumetric online engagement target actually even is. For example, if online content leads to increased school bookings, for example, that's speaking to the effectiveness of the online aspects and contributing to the education and the visitor attraction objectives, but those actual school bookings themselves would get picked up in the visitor number targets, counts anyway. So I just don't know that increasing a volumetric target any more than it's set to increase already is worth striving for. So if there's any agreement, I'd be happy to put something up to amend number 3 if that is required, and if I could get a seconder, but otherwise I'm happy to vote for them as they are, but I'm not sure that is a useful action to increase the online target without any link between the target and the objectives. Thanks.
Deputy Mayor.
Tēnā koe, Your Worship. I suppose just 2 things, and te mihi to Te Manawa, ngā mihi kia kōrua koutou. I had the good fortune, I suppose like many others, when we heard of, the exhibition of Robin Kahukiwa. Beautiful, beautiful. Now, I've got to say, there was one picture there, Hine Titama, one beautiful painting, and I thought, I think this is the best. And when I looked who actually owned it, it was Te Manawa. And I thought, fantastic, that's here within our city, something of international acclaim, such a beautiful taonga. So it was, I suppose, quite surreal to think that when she passed, that exhibition was here. And I know that many people did come. I want to congratulate you on the visitor satisfaction. I mean, going from 95 to 98% is huge. And onwards and upwards, you're only 2% off 100%. And likewise, I think the online engagement, clearly something really good is happening there while people are going on there. That's quite a significant number with the status visits and so forth. So, ngā mihi nui ki a koutou. I think it's a real taonga Te Manawa, and what is offered within across the board. Nō reira, tēnā koutou. Kia ora, Your Worship.
Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's always my pleasure and privilege to receive these reports, whichever chair I happen to be sitting in on the day. And like the Deputy Mayor, I was also going to mention the Robin Kahukiwa exhibition, which I think has just been exceptional. I think speaks to those really strong collaborative relationships that Te Manawa has developed over many years, in this case, particularly with New Zealand Portrait Gallery, that enables us to bring some really stellar exhibitions and share them with our local community. I know that that's been very well received, and that continuing direction of travel will continue to be well received. One thing I wanted to comment on particularly, and there's a comment in the summary which says that visitor numbers are remaining steady. I mean, there's some fluctuation. We're on the right trajectory. I think we'd all agree that. But one thing I have noted with real pleasure has been the increased attendance and vibrancy that I've seen, particularly around openings in the art gallery. And for many years, we kind of struggled to gain much traction in that space with the same old collection of familiar faces turning up for a warm sav and a sausage roll. Sugar already increasing in there. And that has really changed, notably changed over the last, I'm going to say, year or so. I think the quality that you're putting forward in those launch events is noticeable. I've really noticed the staff at Te Manawa's commitment to appropriate tikanga and protocols in that space. Your singing is coming along beautifully. Well done with that. And it just feels like a real event in our community. I've also noticed significant specific sponsorship towards those events, whether that's in-kind sponsorship or engaging with local businesses or a particular angle on the thing that you're opening. And I really would like to encourage more of that. It's been hugely encouraging to see not just the response from the community in terms of turning up, but the response in terms of committing to partnering in those events. I also wanted to note, I was really pleased to see Sunlight come out of storage. I think that shows that those investments that we do over time, and it's no small investment to create our own exhibition product, and certainly a product capable of touring, but that investment isn't lost. It sometimes just goes away for a little bit and then has to come back, have a little love, and it reaches a whole new generation. And certainly when I talked to people who'd been to Sunlight, they thought it was a new thing. They were surprised that it was an old exhibition that we just renewed, which I suppose speaks to the churn of time, and 7 years is a long time. A whole generation has come and gone. So thank you to Manawa for the work you do, to Susanna and the staff, Jeff and the board, and to your volunteers as well. Thank you for the work that you do.
Councillors, we have an amendment, so before we vote on this, we're going to have to take the amendment. So I'll just wait for that to come up. And as you've already spoken, Councillor Ballin, your seconder, Councillor Wood, will have to speak to it.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and as you say, I'm just being a vessel for Councillor Zabalin's amendment to the targets. So what the paper currently says is that Te Manawa review targets be more ambitious, and that Te Manawa review their measure of online engagement. Their targets already have an 8% increase built in year on year, and so Councillor Zabalin and I's view is we might as well just leave it as it is. In my other life, I'm a marketing coordinator. I know a lot about online engagement, and they are quite right in saying it is not an easy thing to expect year-on-year engagement to increase. It does rely in the modern world on getting a viral moment to exceed those targets, or all those kind of things, and as they said themselves, it's not their core business. So I'm quite happy for the 8% year-on-year targets to remain and not push them to go further than that. So hope you'll support.
Can I just ask a question before because I'm a little bit, I've got mixed views on this, because I think you do need to have some targets. So where can you just point me to exactly where, because there's lots of stuff in here. Page 210. 210, top of page 210. Right. So question to you, Councillor Ballin and Councillor Wood. You're saying there that Councillor agreed to the recommended comments in table 4, except the review of online and visitor targets. So we're not going to review any visitor targets in the future.
This is just merely the recommendation is that they review those targets to be more ambitious. I'm suggesting that they have already included in their SOI an 8% increase year on year for the next 3 years, and that would take them to 35,000 visit target. And I'm suggesting that that is sufficient based on their previous visitor counts for the last 3 years, and prior to that, I did bring up all those reports and compare them.
Okay. Well, I'll make a comment to it, as it's an amendment, and anybody else can as well. Look, I hear you about the online and visitor targets, but when an organisation which we fund to a significant amount of money, and they're putting in a major new exhibition, one would hope that it attracts more people. So I think there's got to be some ambition there. So I'm not going to vote for this at this stage, just because I do think there does need to be some accountability and some sort of ambition. Possibly year 3, I hear that it's going to take them a little bit of time to get it underway, so I'm quite relaxed with what's there. But to actually drop that from our SOI, I don't think is that wise. I think we do need to keep some ambition there, otherwise it's human nature just to not do anything. So I do think there does need to be some level of accountability, so I won't be voting for that. All right, write a reply, Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just briefly to say, an 8% year-on-year increase over 3 years is a 25.9, so 26% expectation of increase. I already think that's sufficiently ambitious, so this just exempts them from our requirement that they review their targets to a more ambitious level, and I think we're already expecting them to do a lot more, and that's enough. So I hope you'll support it.
All right, we'll vote on the amendment only. The amendment that's got the bold in it there. And that is passed 8 votes for and 7 against. All right, so we'll put that comes into the substantive there. And I've already spoken to those, so is there anybody else that wishes to speak to those? Not, we'll vote. That has passed 15 votes for, none against. Thank you. Thank you to Te Manawa, thanks. All right, we'll move back to our Treasury report, number 11, and that is around from our Finance Strategy Manager, Steve Patterson. That's for our 9 months ending 31st of March 2025. Steve, page 191 of your papers.
Mr Mayor, elected members, the report's pretty straightforward, I think. Nothing of particular moment to report to you, apart from what's been outlined in the report itself. So I'm open for questions.
You've got off scot-free. All right. That would have to be a first, I think. All right, we've got a recommendation there that the council performance of the Treasury activity for 9 months ending the 31st of March 2025. I'm happy to move that. Seconded by Councillor Dennison. Councillor Naylor.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, that all happened very fast. I did have some questions. Am I too late?
What, I know what your colleagues want to say, but we'll let you go. Away you go.
Apologies, I was expecting some more talking in terms of the report. Sorry.
Steve, sorry, I'll have to ask you to come
Sorry,
back.
sorry. I was just finding my place after the last item. So the question I had is on page 193, it says that we've drawn down 21.4 million that there was 54 million authorised. Just with the other items in this agenda in terms of carry forwards, etc., do we have any sort of indication at this stage about how much will be needed for the full year?
Today, we're on the market raising a further $10 million. And at the moment, I'm not certain whether that'll be sufficient to cover us through to the end of the year or not. We'll be reviewing that in 3 weeks' time to see whether we need more or not.
Okay, and just my other question was related to 3.8, where you've talked about 8.4 million costs and interest as compared to 14 million budgeted for the full year. Once again, a positive thing in terms of needing perhaps a bit less than what we'd budgeted for. Do we have any estimate at this stage of whether we'll need the full 14 million, or how has that been revised at all?
That has been revised, and I think it's mentioned in some of the reports that you've had on the quarterly report with the sort of forecasting information. There will be significantly less than the 14 million that's required, but that's outlined in the reports you've had already, I think.
Oh, okay. What was the forecast amount?
Through you, Mr Mayor, 11.6 million is what we're forecasting at this point.
Oh, thank you. And just final question, the projections of next year's rates increase was about just under half of that was driven by debt, previous and future debt. With us being a bit more behind in a positive way with the debt and the interest, is there any indication at this stage whether we'll need the full amount that was anticipated for next year's annual budget in terms of the cost of debt and interest?
In the report that's coming to you for next week's budget papers, we've reassessed that and we'll give, I suppose, revised assessment of what the opening debt balance will be and therefore the flow-on effects for the interest. And so you'll see that in the report that comes out to you in the next day or so.
Okay, so you're not sharing that information just yet then?
It's still being finalised right now.
Okay. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Harperdale.
Just one quick question. Thanks, Steve. On page 193, on number 3.5, 4.2 million was raised on the 17th of February, and on lent to airport. Yes. Was that as expected?
Yes, that's part of the program that the airport had as leading into their development for the terminal, and so they're just assessing each month what their requirements are, and I'm raising the money as required.
Are we charging interest on that?
Absolutely, yes. There's a formal agreement between the council and the company, and an independently determined margin that we charge above the market rate to cover that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we've got the recommendation there. If there's no commentary, thank you, Steve, and thank you for your report. And we will vote, please. That has passed, 14 votes for and none against. All right, we'll move now to number 8 from our agenda, and that's around capital delivery 2025-26. And I'll ask Scott Mantzer, our Finance Manager, and our PMO Manager, John Aitken, to speak to that. So if you jump back to page 59, councillors.
Kia ora anō tātou. What is this paper all about? So, in short, this is recommending financial management of the capital delivery across financial years. So, officers in this paper have based this paper in relation to the practical implementation of the capital delivery plan. In general, this covers two recommendations. Firstly, to carry forward budget into subsequent financial years, and secondly, to start selected capital works early in the current financial year. Previously, the Quarter report described significant risks which have imposed delay to a number of projects planned for this financial year. When roadblocks have not been mitigated or managed, these have been identified as carry forwards. We understand the implication this will have on the capital budget for the next financial year. While options have been suggested in this paper, a more comprehensive paper will be discussing this during deliberations next week. In terms of the carry forwards, the number and the value of carry forwards represent capital work that is required to be completed in the next financial year. This is based on the delays and deferrals of projects from the current year. These are our best estimate at this point in time, and they're based on realised risks during project delivery. By way of example, these realised risks have come from multiple different factors, one being technical feasibility. And what I mean by that, for example, is the wastewater pump stations that we're looking to put in under that program. The designs come back saying basically we need to drill 9.5 metres down into the ground, which wasn't technically technically feasible nor affordable. Similar with some of our water treatment projects have come back saying they're not technically feasible. There's also delayed commencement due to NZTA funding, which has created uncertainty, and I spoke to the shredder chipper, which is a $1.6 million procurement from overseas as well. There have been tender costs and delivery costs that have come back higher than anticipated, as well as legal and regulatory risks that we're working through, and contractor and consultant underperformance. You'll recall previous quarter reports we've discussed around weather delays, particularly in the month of August, where we received significant rainfall, which delayed work somewhat as well. Of these projects, they are under contract with contractors mobilised, and many of these just need to be finalised over the first few months of the new financial year. So what can we do about it? One of the options that we're presenting within this paper is looking at early commencement of works, and we've identified selected programs which we can start this financial year. And by start, I mean the preliminary work in terms of design or procurement, or early construction work to ease the pressure in the next financial year. These are at attachment 2 and show approximately $830,000 worth of work that we can complete. It should be noted that this is from separate activities and by separate divisions within council than what we are trying to carry, or what we are recommending is carried forward. The other items that we're looking to do different in terms of looking forward to future years is continuing to improve our maturity towards project management with a strong level of diligence across all programs. This is our first year using our new project management tool and the associated changes in process. Our team is becoming much more proficient with this as we're closing out this year's projects, learning from the lessons and that we've encountered today. The other aspect to this is looking at rationalising next year's capital plan to make sure that we're refining that towards what is achievable in terms of implementation. again, lessons learnt from this financial year, and we'll be putting that forward next week to discuss options that you as councillors can select in terms of how we rationalise that, which will see potentially a reduction in capital program for the next financial year, deferring costs into later years in the LTP, or cancelling work outright and accepting a lower level of service. This concludes my brief summary, but I'm happy to take questions you have.
I might just add a couple of sentences there. Thanks, John. That's a really good summary. Sort of as popped up in the questions earlier in the quarter report paper and just recently in the Treasury paper, there's a high level of correlation between the quarter report, this paper, and next week's deliberations. So without being too cheeky, a lot of the conversation is probably going to come next week when we provide details of the full program for next financial year. We've been working on the assumption that next year's capital program is not to be larger financially than what we consulted on, and we have a proposal there, and that is absolutely up for debate next week. And these carry forwards have been factored into that revised program, and we've factored in, excuse me, the revised opening position for debt in light of these carry forwards as well. Like John said, happy to take any questions.
Scott, so just on your commentary right at the end there, if you've got this 13 odd million or whatever it is carry forward, what are you going to chop out? Are you going to put something up at the other end?
So we've got I might start, and John can help me with some specific detail here, but we've looked at next year's program, and as we've worked through the detailed planning of those projects, we've established that we don't need all of that money in next year, and some could be deferred to the following year. And the example that is very top of mind is the program around the MRF. The construction for that is planned to be over the winter months, so right over the end of the financial year. And to minimise disruption to that service, we have a proposal to defer a chunk of that program into the following financial year and only spend about 25% of the proposed program there at the moment. But without getting into detail of too much of next week's paperwork, those are the kinds of things that we've been looking at. We've also had technical reports that John spoke about that have come through, and we've had to revise or replan what we're doing in some cases, and we're factoring those changes in as well. And that accounts for the large volume of offset of the carry forwards going into next year's program.
And just to add to Scott's comments there, what we are seeing through the design stages, we don't know everything until it's been designed. We don't have the high level cost estimates. We don't have all of the technical risk, etc. So we're phasing the delivery of these projects so that we look at design as a discrete component in 1 year, followed by procurement and delivery in a subsequent year. If there is land purchase associated with it, that would be one discrete activity that we would spread over multiple financial years to make sure that we're not rushing everything into 1 year and trying to achieve beyond what is feasible.
That's obviously on larger projects. I mean, business as usual, we try and complete it as quickly as possible, wouldn't we, normally?
100%.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, okay. Okay, just a couple more. So on page 64, just around artificial turf renewals, what is that? Or where is that? Is that a hockey turf? What is that? Or is it a sports field?
Yeah, so those are for the sports fields, and the particular project that looks at is hard surface renewals, so driveways, car parks, etc., in support of those hard surfaces.
All right. And the swimming pool program 1837, pool renewals, what pool's that? It's a big chunky number.
I'll just refer to our acting manager for Parks and Reserves.
Good afternoon, Mr Mayor and Councillors. Apologies if you don't mind repeating the question, because I was
Yep.
trying to sort out an answer to the previous question just as Yeah, and my laptop battery just failed after the number of hours we'd been in here working. So if you mind repeating that, I'll find the answer on my phone as you're asking it.
Okay, so program, hopefully somebody knows, 1837, swimming pools, pool renewals, 722,000.
I'll provide an answer to that. My very diligent colleague had emailed this to me moments ago, but one was the Lido plant room, and the other is a UV install at the Splashhurst pool.
Okay, all right, that's underneath it, okay. All right, I'll ask it again when you've got all the information there. I'll go to some of my colleagues. Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Thank you for the paper. I've got 3 questions. The first one is, we've got a paper coming next on Roslyn and bringing money forward from year 7. Presumably that hasn't been factored into any of this?
Yes, that's correct. And I think answers were provided on behalf of officers to elected members yesterday, and that was the answer. We have not offset the Roslyn hub out of next year's program as of yet.
Okay, so this is a bit cheeky because we're not on that item yet, but if we were to bring it forward, would you then have to revise the paper that you bring to us next week?
No, we will bring a model that we'll be able to add and remove programs during next week's conversation. The model is at a certain point, and I've actually just started the approval process of that paper, so that point's been and gone now. But I think if I can recall the answer to the question, we couldn't identify anything as officers to offset that, so it would have to be at the discretion of the elected members to offset that cost.
Okay, thank you. Now, in the loose piece of paper, attachment 1, I see that there's a proposal to defer, or rather to carry forward 450,000 for citywide new community hubs into 2026-27, so that's not next year but the year after. Deliberate change of approach to design and build delivery model is the comment. Could you give us a bit more explanation to that?
So this relates to well, specifically one of the projects is the Awapuni Community Hub. What we're looking at there is using next year to create a set of user requirements that are very specific to inform design and build model, because a design and build model, having the one entity deliver that both the design and build, means that we need to be very specific around what we're actually after. The delivery of that is much more prompt than the traditional model, in that you have the one group mobilised, ready to deliver both the design and the build. So there are several advantages in terms of the design and build approach. The carry forward to next financial year was to enable that scoping work to make sure that we were actually sure on the user requirements before we launched into a design build contract.
Okay. Third question. Attachment 2, the capital programme's early commencement list. It's more of a process question, I suppose, but I mean, technically we haven't confirmed the budget for next year. So how can you start spending it?
I might take this one, John. You are correct, you haven't confirmed next year's budget. The resolutions in front of you today are actually increasing this year's budget reflective of those values. And as part of next week's paperwork, we have reduced that same amount of money out of those programs from next year, so they won't be a factor as part of next week's conversations around that.
Okay, well, not that I'm planning this, but others might. If someone was planning to put up some of these on the chopping block, and you've already started them, is that not just going to be money lost, wasted, etc.? I mean, does this actually tie elected members' hands for decision making around what projects might go ahead or might not?
The nature of majority of those programs, all except the last 2, are renewal programs, so they have continual budgets every year. Previous officer advice has been to limit the reductions in the renewals because that lets us fall behind our asset management standards. But in effect, yes, that would tie your hands a little bit, no different to any other program being brought to council partway through a year to start and then feed in over a longer period as well.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Naylor.
Thank you. My questions are similar to the last question that Councillor Johnson's asked. In terms of the recommendations in recommendation 2, there's 2 options there, A and B. Are you wanting us to choose A or B? Because I don't know if they seem to be in conflict with, I mean, if we approve it now, what's the point of referring it? Just a little bit unsure about process in terms of those
They're both
two.
referrals, though.
Well, the 2A says approve an increase, and then B says refer it, and so it feels a bit like we're predetermining the decisions that we may or may not make next week if we approve it.
So the approval relates to this current year's budget, which is an increase. Referral relates to the associated decrease to next year's budget, and that can't be done outside of an annual budget deliberation, which is why we'd refer that to next week's discussions.
So in terms of retaining the integrity of the deliberations process and us going into it with an open mind and considering all the feedback and making decisions, but I mean, this is a new thing. I've never seen this happen before. Is any of this work planned to be started between now and next Wednesday?
Well, this is entirely contingent on the decision that is made today. We have existing maintenance contracts and arrangements made to be able to deliver this work, and it is work that we have identified that can be delivered within this financial year. So that's, and it's not the complete project, as I said, so it is just getting that head start on work that was already planned for next financial year.
So would there be any issue with us holding off making a decision about this till next Wednesday? In terms of confirming this, it feels like we're being asked to confirm something that we're yet to consider and debate. Is there any issue with holding off on the recommendation 2 till next week? Or is any of this work planned to be started in the next 7 days?
Yeah, so I guess the key difference between now and this week is that you'd lose that week worth of work and would need to revise the number based on what we can physically complete over that period of time. Aside from that, the principle would still be the same whether you approved it today or next week.
So are you saying that there would be work happen between now and next Wednesday?
We could start that if that's the decision that councillors elect to choose.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Harpiter.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. I've just got a couple of questions about the project management process that you've introduced into the chamber, John. Just looking at some of the comments that you've put forward, you're talking about some of the things being that they are delays in procurement and other things that are more delays in funding. And I wondered if you were trying to clump things together and whether they were causes because of delays in certain areas. And I just wondered if that's what you were trying to indicate to us, that there's certain delays, and like whether it's technical delays or funding delays, or because that's what we've been hearing this morning, that some projects can't be funded and some projects I'm trying not to comment, but I'm trying to raise the question to try and align that to see where you're coming from.
The intent behind these comments here relate to risks that we've identified through project delivery. So some of these risks could be stakeholder related in terms of coming to a deal in terms of land acquisition. Some of them have been informed by our design consultants around this is a design for a pump station or a rising wastewater main or whatever it might be. And we've looked at what the design comes out to in terms of affordability, but also in terms of can we operate it, can we maintain it, can we give that a good service life. So while we've said technical delays or procurement related delays, there's a bit more backstory behind each one of these in terms of exactly what was the cause of the delay.
So have some of them got higher levels of risk than others in terms of project risks?
Yes, 100%. So there's a variety of risk, and these are the ones that officers haven't been able to manage through internal means.
So how do we know that? How can we see that? Because it's transparent on this piece of paper.
Can you repeat the question?
How do we know that? We can't see that on this piece of paper. How high this risk is.
So these are all risks that have materialised as issues, and so it's not just a likelihood that this consequence could happen. It's the risks have materialised into issues, and we've attempted to summarise those issues in the comments.
So what I'm saying is, how do we rank them that they're going to fall over? How can we, as a governance team, say, well, this is going to fall over? I can't say here which is more at risk than anything else on this piece of paper as a governance team, because you haven't sort of told us which is at more risk than anything else on the piece of paper.
You mean in terms of prioritising the list in terms of which has most risk?
I might try and help out John here. I think what we're trying to say is these programs have had risks materialise in the current year, and we cannot achieve them by 30 June, hence the reason to carry forward. There are still some risks associated with these programs, and officers are doing their best to try and mitigate that as much as possible. But at this point in time, to get those programs complete by 30 June is unachievable due to the risk materialising. Does that help?
Yeah, okay. Okay, thanks.
Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, team. Just one question from me. On page 63 with the table of capital programs to be deferred, so program 161 public toilets, I take that 270,000 is to build a new toilet, and our approach has been we do one per year. So the suggestion is next year we would build two rather than just building one, because we've missed this year. Is that correct?
I don't have the information in front of me in terms of that what we're looking to carry forward is the Albert Street toilet, which I believe you'll recall has been discussed in this chamber previously. I'm not sure on the next financial year's budget in terms of what is in the plan for public toilet new or renewal work.
Okay, so assuming that there's 270,000 there, as there is every year, I believe, could we just not carry this forward and just use that money that's already in the budget for next year to build the Albert Street toilet? It just seems silly to build two in 1 year when we don't normally do that. I'm just trying to understand the thinking.
Yes, and that would defer the planned work for next year into the following year. It'd be shunting everything further along.
Okay.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. We have some recommendations there, and I'm just reading the room, so bear with me here. One, that council refer the carry forward of capital programs from 24-25 financial year to 25-26 financial year, as detailed in attachment 1 to the annual budget deliberation meeting next week on the 14th of May 25. B, refer the carry forwards of capital programs in the 24-25 financial year to year to 26-27 financial year, as detailed in attachment 1 to the annual budget 26-27 process. 2, that council, I'm not going to put in A, and we're going to go to B, refer the adjusted capital program budgets as detailed in attachment 2 to the annual budget deliberations meeting on the 14th of May 25. Can I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Dennison. Colleagues, I could sense, and a little bit uneasy, perhaps a week early. It won't get us to stay a week effectively we will have to accept that we've lost a week of perhaps doing some stuff, but I think in light of a relatively large amount of referrals, it's probably wise to let's deliberate that next week, and then we can go forward and hopefully we have some sort of common agreement, and we can allow the officers to do their job. So I hope you can sense what I'm trying to do there, and it was sort of borne out from some of your questions and my questions as well. Councillor Naylor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. That definitely resolves the issues that I had with the original recommendation in the paper, and certainly does retain the integrity of next week's deliberations, so I'm comfortable to support all of those. In supporting these, I just want to acknowledge this is referring that to next week, and it doesn't mean that I necessarily support everything in those attachments, but that's for next week's debate.
Councillor Johnson.
It's just a question really about 1B, where it says refer the carry forward of capital programmes to the 26-27 financial year. Should it not just be to the annual budget 26-27, or are they up for debate again? Is that why it's the annual budget process? Because they've already been, my understanding, they've already been agreed. We can't do them, so they're being carried forward. But if we carry them forward to the process, are they up for debate again?
I'll just get an officer response.
Probably along the similar lines of the other councillor's question, yes, they are up for debate. Our advice would be that you do them, but elected members could choose to reduce that program in that particular year. And next week's meeting is about next year's budget, not the following year budget. So you have to refer it to that process.
No, I understand that. It's just, yeah, my understanding, but maybe I was wrong, was when we carry things forward, they're automatically in that draft budget without any debate, and subsequently, of course, we might make any particular decision when we deliberate, but that they start in the budget. Is that not the case?
I'll just get the CEO to comment.
Yeah, through the chair, similar to what we've just done with 2A, perhaps you might not need it, and you just actually refer everything to next week, and then if we then make recommendations that move some projects out a further year, these alongside any others that you might decide to move around can be done at the same time. So maybe 1B could be left out and just then check in. Oh, that would mean that we'd refer the whole of attachment 1 to deliberations next week. Would that help?
I guess it's more about my understanding of the process. So, trying to explain it as succinctly as possible. If staff recommend a carry forward to a budget that's already been agreed, does that budget then have to be redebated in the next annual budget, or does it not automatically start in the draft of that annual budget for that year?
My understanding, it does start in the draft.
That's what I thought. So that's why I don't understand why it says to the annual budget process. Should it not just be to the draft annual budget 26-27?
But it does, yeah, the system needs to pass next week as well.
No, I understand that, but this is about this particular thing.
Yeah. So we should probably, and if the second is okay with that, we would delete the word process.
No, I know what I mean. Because otherwise what we're saying is we've agreed projects, we can't do them this year, so now they're up for debate whether we do them again in the future. Whereas actually, we carry them forward to the next budget and they go in that draft budget, and then at that point, when we do the deliberations for that year, that's when there's a debate on them. Is that not the process? Maybe governance have got a point of view.
Through you, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Chief Executive. I think the issue here is that you're not agreeing the carry forwards right now. You're agreeing to refer the carry forwards to next week. Next week, based on the decision that you make, if you agree to make a change to the 25-26, then the consequence of that is that, yes, you're correct, Councillor Johnson, the next year's budget would be adjusted accordingly. But because we don't know that yet, whether or not you're going to include them or not, we can't refer them to that budget. We can't do B yet. We can't refer them directly into the budget because we're not sure if they're in next year's budget yet. So they can't be in the next year.
Yeah, no, I
So
understand.
I actually think that 1B is actually superfluous, and maybe it's just a
Okay.
consequence of the decision next week.
Maybe we'll just get rid of 1B then. Okay.
Yep, I think we get rid of it. Second is okay with that, we'll just put a line through it. Okay, so just to clarify what we're doing, we've got one, that council refer the carry forward of capital programs from the 24-25 financial year to the 25-26 financial year as detailed in attachment 1. 2, our annual plan budget deliberations meeting next week on the 14th. Number 2, that council refer any adjusted capital program budgets as detailed on attachment 2, again to the annual budget deliberations meeting next week on the 14th. Okay. All right, you haven't spoken, Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, indeed, until this moment. I was a bit surprised, to be honest, by some of the lines of questioning that came through here, and some of the early strikes on the recommendations in front of us. I thought that the best bit of this report was actually the let's get started a bit early on a few things. It is a few things. They are low risk. They're going to happen anyhow. Now we're going to muck around, having spent, how much of our time and money today, so that we can have the same conversation in a week's time, and reward officers' proactivity with a bit of a slap. It just doesn't make sense to me. We want a council that's agile, that's out there, that's getting things done, that's serving the community, and we slap them. I don't get it.
We'll vote on these ones first, and then we can come to 2A after that. All right. Yes, you're probably right. The word adjusted probably should not be there. Yep, we can put a line through that. This is all getting a bit pedantic now. I think I'm starting to agree with Councillor Barrett. All right, so we'll just so we can continue on. So we've got 1A and 2B, right? We're just going to vote on those two now, please. That has passed 15 votes for, none against, thank you. Right, so we're going to come back to what's this one called? Extra motion. So our additional, number 2, our additional motion here is that council approve an increase to the capital budget's 24-25 financial year to allow for early commencement in capital works as detailed in attachment 2. So, do you want to flick you've come off. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you. I'll speak a bit further on this. I think I said the main thing I wanted to say, but when you look at page 64 and you see the sorts of things that are there, I just can't see why we want to tie ourselves in a knot on this. These are all good, sensible things to do. We've heard from officers why it's important or why it's valuable that we actually start some of them before into financial year. Let's just let them actually be good managers of resource. Thank you.
Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've done the Shakespeare's recommendation of to be or not to be. We're now going to do 2A or not 2A. Thank you. I'm with Councillor Barrett's mind on this, and I was mindful when you separated them out, Mr. Mayor, initially. But if any member's got a problem with that list, because I concur with Councillor Barrett, officers are promoting some things. Let's get started, because there's always a delay. It's not unusual to have carry forwards, but when officers come and say, hey, we can get started on these renewal projects primarily, let's do it. And so I'm very comfortable. If members have an item or two that they wish, do it as an exception to the rule rather than waiting another week when next week's business is going to be loaded already anyway. That's the reality. And who wants to deal with little nuts and bolts of like getting some renewal projects started straight away? Let's save ourselves some time next week, because there's going to be enough to get our teeth into, and move this accordingly. Thank you, Councillor Barrett, for being so proactive.
Yes, to our Shakespearean councillors. Funny how hindsight's a good thing, isn't it? I'm starting to agree with you now too. So there is pretty low risk when you put it into context about renewals. So perhaps we just didn't quite capture that from the officers initially, but it is. Look, I'm in agreement too. The risk is so low actually. So it's sometimes interesting to hear everyone else's comments. So thank you, Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I think this probably shows that you shouldn't assume someone's position just because of the question that they ask. So I'm actually more than happy to support this. I thought it was a really good idea. And I was quite surprised when you said, read the room, people don't... Sorry? Oh, Councillor Barrett's point of ordering me. I shall sit down.
Well, just to indicate that I didn't indicate it was Councillor Johnson's question. I suggested it was a general line of questioning in the room. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. However, so we'll keep it short because the day's moving on. I'm happy to support this. I thought it was a great idea. As far as I'm concerned, none of these things are particularly controversial, but I would like to point out that there is a process issue here. We haven't technically approved these budgets, and therefore, once council starts work on them, it does make it difficult for councillors, of which I am not one, who might wish to cut any of these in the budget next week. So I just, in fairness, wanted to point that out so that we are all aware of it. But actually, I'm quite happy for us to go ahead with these, and I think it's a good suggestion from you. Thank you.
Councillor Naylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I'm really strongly opposed to this. I think this is a really bad case of predetermination. If something can't wait 7 days for good process, where we honestly say to our community that we listen to all the feedback, that we go in with an open mind, and then we make decisions, this totally contradicts that. We haven't got the officer's summary of what's proposed. Yes, I agree there's going to be a lot to consider next week. But in this report, in 3.5, it was really clear that some of the options that are available to us in terms of these attachments, one of those options, the bottom one, is cancelling work and accepting a lower level of service. Other is deferring costs to later years in the long-term plan. I don't think it's fair to assume that all of these programs will be in their entirety by the end of next week. We've yet to have those debates, and I think there are some items in there that are quite contentious and will require a debate. So I'd urge you to vote against this for the sake of purity of process going into next week's debate, to be quite honest.
Would you like a writer? No. Okay. So council's got number 2 there. It's around enabling the officers to carry out some early commencement of capital works and of a week, as detailed in attachment 2. So we will vote, please. And that is passed 10 votes for and 5 against. All right, just mindful of what we've still got to get through, so if I could call up Bill Carswell, Martin Brady, just around the Roslyn Community Hub. This page 279 of our papers. Ask you to vote, please. And then it's passed 9 votes for and 5 against. All right. We've got number 14, and I'll take that as being read. That's a submission on our Parliament around the term of Parliament enabling a 4-year term, and it's around the legislation amendment bill. If there's no comments to that, I'll look to move the recommendation that Council receive the titled Submission on Term of Parliament Enabling a 4-Year Legislation Amendment Bill, moved by myself, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. That was sent a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, cool. All right, no further comments. We'll vote on this, please. That has passed 14 votes for, none against. All right, we're making progress. Number 15 is around the council work schedule on page 295 to 297. I'm happy to move that we receive the work schedule dated today, 7th of May 2025, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. I'll ask for any matters arising or any comments. Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Number 25, Summer Hayes reports, partnership models, expressions of interest and so on. That's been lying on the table for a year. What's the plan there?
Through the Mayor. Yeah, part of the work in amongst there as well, we're waiting for our new property manager to get on board to drive that forward a lot more quickly than it has. So he's now here. Looking to progress that rather swiftly.
So before the election?
Well, that would be nice. Perhaps I'll look to provide you with an update, an elected member update as well about progress around how we might be able to achieve that.
Thank you.
Councillor Naylor.
Thanks. Just item 3, the deliberations next week. Just querying whether we need to have anything planned for if we need more than a day for that?
As I said to you in the break, I don't believe we'll even need a full day, but we've got a full day.
Okay, I just wondered if...
We've got an evening. If seriously we get to that, you've got an evening.
Okay, thanks.
It is not an LTP, remember, it's an annual plan. Councillor Harper.
Number 17, just wondered if that is definitely coming back to the 6th of August council meeting, and is that going to give us options from the airport? Is that the report?
Yeah, perhaps in line with the through the Mayor, perhaps in line with the as I just mentioned about the Summer Hayes stuff, I'll just get some updates on progress of a couple of those items and come back to you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thanks, colleagues. There's quite a lot on there, so yeah, a lot to do. All right. We've got our recommendation. We'll vote, please. That has passed 15 votes for and none against. Thank you. All right, number 17 is around moving into part 2 confidential. So I would wait for that to come up, please. All right, I'll move that we will move into the excluded part of the meeting, part 2 confidential, for reasons of commercial activity. And have a seconder. Thank you, the Deputy Mayor. And I will ask you to vote, please. Okay, that's passed, 15 votes for, none against. Colleagues, I'm just going to have a little small break, so, yeah, that's good. Back in the chamber at just trying to read that, 4:05, and we'll just nail our part two. Thank you.